The Tunisian Prime Minister Habib Al-Said co-chairs the works of the 20th session of the Algerian-Tunisian High Joint Commission with his Algerian counterpart. Plus, the governor of the International Book Fair of Algiers, Hamid Massoudi, held a press conference today only a few hours before the kickstart of the much-awaited book fair exhibition Sila, with France as guest of honor. And later on in our news program, leaders from Central Europe and the Balkans are due to hold an emergency summit to discuss the migrant crisis. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Dzair News Live and welcome to this English News edition. First, in our top stories, the Tunisian Prime Minister Habib Al-Said co-chairs the works of the 20th session of the Algerian-Tunisian High Joint Commission with his Algerian counterpart. This visit constitutes an assessment of the bilateral relations at the political, security, economic and social levels. Karifa Zakri.
The Tunisian Prime Minister conducts for the second time a two-day working visit to Algeria at the invitation of Prime Minister Abdelmalek Salal. The Tunisian Prime Minister and his Algerian counterpart will co-chair the works of the 20th session of the Algerian-Tunisian High Joint Commission. The most important sides to be discussed now are the political and security files on the basis of the fact that Tunisia bore heavy losses in the field of tourism because of the two last terrorist operations in Bardo Museum or in the touristic resort of Sousa. Algerians constituted a kind of a social security for the Tunisians in the sense that they filled the gap which the foreign tourists left. Strengthening the intelligence coordination to put an end to smuggling arms and paralyze terrorist movements between the two countries are the main axes of dialogue in the visit of Habib Al-Said to Algeria. Securing the common borders between the two countries are the most important challenges, especially due to the uncontrollable security situation in the neighboring Libya. There are meetings by the defense and security forces at economic and social levels and gives also an opportunity to discuss a number of issues of common interest related to the evolution of the sub-regional situation.
The governor of the International Book Fair of Algiers, Hamidou Massoudi, held a press conference today only a few hours before the kickstart of the much-awaited book fair exhibition Sila, with France as guest of honor. Mr. Hamidou Massoudi spoke about various focal points regarding the 20th edition of the fair, which is under the theme of 20 years in the foreground. 70% of the books in the event are new and of great importance to the Algerian students. All books showcased in this edition will be available for the public to purchase. Various prominent figures will also partake in the fair. Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research Tahar Hadjar and French Minister of National Education, Higher Education and Research Najat Vallaud-Belkacem expressed Saturday in Algiers their willingness to continue the cooperation between the two countries in the field of education. French Minister underlined that several issues related to the cooperation in this field were discussed during this meeting, notably with regard to the agreements signed between the two countries' universities and whose number has reached more than 800, as well as grants and program of mobility for students. For his part, Hadjar highlighted the adequate progress in the Algerian-French cooperation, citing more particularly the number reached in terms of exchanging teachers, with 13,000 for Algeria and 4,000 for France. The state-run internet provider Algerie Telecom announced that the ship sailing from Marseille anchored ashore. The latter is assigned to fix the damaged underwater fiber optic cable of the coastline of the eastern province of Annaba. According to the same source, the main cause behind the internet outage was two foreign vessels that sailed across the cable location and may have dropped the anchors into the water to keep the vessels in place, but the latter end up damaging the cable, which has a result caused Algeria to lose 81% of its internet traffic. Official sources within Algerie Telecom have not yet issued an exact date as when the works will wrap up. The operation of retrieving the payment demands through the internet has kick-started on Sunday to pay the second installment for 21 and 22 2002 Al-Adel subscribers, but due to the facts surrounding the underwater damaged cable of Algeria Telecom, people could not finish the process due to the slow internet. Shakib Lawishi for more details.
Citizens were called up for this Sunday to withdraw the orders of payment of the second phase of their dwellings. But unfortunately, the operation didn't start as expected, as the subscribers had to discover that they needed to use internet in order to complete and print their appointment letter. This is quite impossible knowing that the internet is facing technical problems. They didn't tell us to use the website. We were told to use it the first day in order to know how to choose the location of the dwellings. But this time, they didn't tell us. They only asked us to come and withdraw the orders of payment. Whilst these little complications that characterized the first day of operations, other subscribers managed to withdraw their order of payment without problems. It is worth noting that more than 80,000 subscribers were concerned by this operation. I have submitted my administrative file and the first down payment bill. I have done everything they asked. Everything went well. Amid the protest and contestations, AADL agency wanted to reassure all the subscribers that they will all withdraw their orders of payments gradually and with no complications. AADL 2001 and 2002 subscribers will pay and withdraw their orders of payment gradually. Each day we will have approximately 1,000 subscribers. The operation will last for almost a month, where 1,000 subscribers will be called every day until everything is done.
In economy-related news, national and international economists believe the measures taken by the Algerian government to curb the economic crisis are insufficient. And it seems that many other oil-producing countries are barely touched by the crisis thanks to the sustainable and diversified economy. Kanifa Zakri.
Due to the high level of current stocks, but also the arrival of Iranian oil production on the market after the lifting of international sanctions, the energy prices in 2015 should be lower by almost 43% compared to 2014 and may even go beneath in a fluctuating manner. To this effect, the Algerian government implemented many measures to optimize the revenues of the state budget, such as the 2016 Finance Act. However, national and international economists believe these measures are insufficient. Algeria, whose 95% of exports represents hydrocarbon, has implemented measures such as the devaluation of the dinar, like other currencies of oil-producing countries, to minimize the impact of the fall in oil revenues. It also decided to freeze non-prioritized infrastructure projects and also provides for a reduction of budget expenditures. Moreover, the government implemented a tax amnesty for the informal sector, which aims to attract fresh funds in the bank to identify new financing capacities. It has also set up an import hardening program. According to the Prime Minister, import regulations will not hamper the supplies of production tool and availability of products in the market. The measures are reportedly to support companies, facilitate investment, and encourage national productive sector. Just recently, Algeria has invited Chinese companies and investors to focus their efforts in launching joint projects with the Algerian counterparts for the manufacturing of building materials and financing Algeria's mega projects. The Algerian government has finally understood the necessity to ensure sustainable economic security, which would not get affected by the fluctuations in oil prices, as well as international economic or financial crisis by boosting the non-hydrocarbon sectors. However, these measures taken by the Algerian government are deemed in short supply in comparison with the measures taken by the many other countries touched by this crisis, such as Russia, Norway, Saudi Arabia, Niger, and so on and so forth, whose economies, ironically, doesn't seem to be really touched by the catastrophe. So why can't Algeria learn from the examples of these countries, and what would the government do more to reach a sustainable economy which wouldn't get affected by the fluctuating oil prices and international crises?
Moving on to world news, voters in Tanzania are heading to the polls in presidential and parliamentary elections, with the ruling party facing its toughest test yet from opposition rivals led by former Prime Minister Edward Lowassa. In the lead up to Sunday's polls, opposition leader Lowassa tapped into mounting anger over corruption and the slow pace of change in East Africa's second most populous country. With its 54-year rule, the Party of the Revolution, CCM, is the dominant party in Tanzania and the longest reigning ruling party in Africa. However, CCM has faced growing pressure to speed up development of Tanzania's significant natural gas resources to spur economic growth and lower stubbornly high poverty rates. Leaders from Central Europe and the Balkans are due to hold an emergency summit to discuss the migrant crisis. A draft statement leaked ahead of the meeting calls on countries to stop waving through migrants without the agreement of their neighbors. Bottlenecks have formed, leaving thousands out in the cold at night. Dzair.
As tens of thousands of migrants stream across the Balkans, spats and threats are features of the European response. The leaders of Bulgaria, Serbia and Romania have met to discuss their reaction to the increased flow of migrants across the region following Hungary's decision to close its borders. In a statement, they said they would close their borders if Germany and Austria blocked entry to migrants. EU leaders are meeting to confirm a common stance to a problem that has seen 500,000 migrants and refugees arrive in the Balkans since the beginning of the year.
Today, no task is more important for the moderate centrist political camp than the re-establishment of Europe's external borders. And not in order to make Europe into an inaccessible fortress, but to effectively protect the values I have just mentioned. It means solidarity, freedom and openness. Only then will we be able to stop the radicals in their march for power.
Slovenia is considering erecting a barrier along its border with Croatia if the EU fails to reduce the migrant burden on the most exposed countries. Leaders of the richer European states fear a right-wing backlash if the unchecked flow of migrants continues.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said his country is ready to support the Free Syrian Army with airstrikes and cooperate closely with the US in fighting ISIS and other factions. The calls for cooperation came after at least 44 people, including 6 children, were killed in 24 hours due to the Russian and Syrian airstrikes across the country, particularly in Idlib province. Russia says its airstrikes are against ISIS and other terrorists, but rebels and the US, which is conducting its own campaign against ISIS and some rebel factions, say Moscow has focused on opposition forces than ISIS. The Soviet Union sent thousands of troops into Afghanistan during a Christmas Eve invasion in 1979 in an attempt to end the country's civil war and prop up an ally against Islamic insurgents. A proxy war resulted. Could the war on Syria have a similar scenario? Dzair.
The Soviet Union sent thousands of troops into Afghanistan in an attempt to end the country's civil war and prop up an ally against Islamist insurgents. A proxy war ensued as the US and Arab states' armed Mujahideen Islamists pushed out Soviet forces after a decade of bloody battles and heavy losses.
Все-таки мы считали, что за 9 лет войны мы могли сделать больше, чтобы прекратить эту войну.
We thought we could have done more to stop the warring over the course of 9 years. We weren't planning on fighting for a long period of time. Afghanistan showed us that difficult conflicts over extended periods are hard on the government. Some worry the trauma of the Afghan proxy could be repeated in Syria if US-backed rebels face Russian airstrikes. But Russian veterans of the Afghan war repeat the government line. The only threat is from those opposed to Damascus, who they label as terrorists.
Различий очень много. И в тактике боевых действий.
So the differences are huge. In regards to tactics, we are only providing air support. The Syrian army is on the ground. Although, let me say that without a ground operation, it won't be so effective. It would take a full-scale ground operation to clean out the areas seized by the terrorists. But while the Russian public supports Russia's addition to coalition attacks on Islamic State terrorists, it is against using ground troops. We've learned from the Afghan experience, so I don't think we'll repeat it. Plus, this is the 21st century. Our infantry won't go in. We'll just bomb using aviation. Maybe we'll provide some arms, but I doubt it will turn into another Afghanistan. Russia is less tolerant of loss of life in foreign wars than during the Afghan war, when thousands of deaths were kept quiet.
Потери, я считаю, даже минимальные, крайне вредно скажутся на всей обстановке.
I think that even minimal losses could have a serious impact on the whole situation. That's the lesson we need to take. Minimize casualties, because casualties could happen not just in the air. There could be attacks on our bases in Syria as well. The US-led coalition dismissed any coordination with Moscow or its ally President Bashar al-Assad, but in a positive step, the two sides agreed to share flight data over Syria to prevent accidents from turning into conflicts.
Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair says on an exclusive interview on CNN that he's sorry for mistakes made in the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003, but he doesn't regret bringing down Saddam Hussein. Blair was referring to the claim that Saddam's regime possessed weapons of mass destruction, which was used by the US and British governments to justify launching the invasion. But the intelligence reports the claim was based on turned out to be false. Let's have a listen.
Given, however, that Saddam Hussein did not prove to have weapons of mass destruction, was the decision to enter Iraq and topple his regime a mistake?
You know, whenever I'm asked this, I can say that I apologize for the fact that the intelligence we received was wrong, because even though he had used chemical weapons extensively against his own people, against others, the program in the form that we thought it was did not exist in the way that we thought. So I can apologize for that. I can also apologize, by the way, for some of the mistakes in planning, and certainly our mistake in our understanding of what would happen once you removed the regime. But I find it hard to apologize for removing Saddam. I think even from today in 2015, it is better that he's not there than that he is there.
When people look at the rise of ISIS, many people point to the invasion of Iraq as the principal cause. What do you say to that?
I think there are elements of truth in that, but I think we've, again, got to be extremely careful, otherwise we'll misunderstand what's going on in Iraq and in Syria today. Of course, you can't say that those of us who removed Saddam in 2003 bear no responsibility for the situation in 2015, but it's important also to realize, one, that the Arab Spring, which began in 2011, would also have had its impact on Iraq today, and two, ISIS actually came to prominence from a base in Syria and not in Iraq. And that leads me to the broader point, which I think is so essential when we're looking at policy today, which is we have tried intervention and putting down troops in Iraq. We've tried intervention without putting in troops in Libya. And we've tried no intervention at all but demanding regime change in Syria. Right? It's not clear to me that even if our policy did not work, subsequent policies have worked better.
On to a lighter topic, French fries and ice cream may be the kinds of foods many of us love to indulge in after a night of drinking beverage. But research earlier this year suggests we can actually have benders on these foods all by themselves, and it may even be a sign of an addiction. For the first time, a team of researchers looked at exactly which types of foods could be the most addictive. They asked a group of 120 undergraduates at the University of Michigan and another group of nearly 400 adults about 35 different types of foods, from pizza, broccoli, and whether they think they could have problems controlling how much they add of each one. 18 of the items were processed foods, meaning they contained added sugars and fats. Pizza surprisingly came out on top of the most addictive food list. Besides being a basic food group for kids, college students and adults, there is scientific reason as well. All of pizza and it has to do with the cheese. And finally, to wrap up our news edition, British singer Adele's new song Hello was only released 2 days ago, and it just has already racked up more than 51 million YouTube views. This super-timed video has gone viral, not just because of its haunting lyrics and artistic shots. It is the singer's antiquated flip phone and orthodox tea-making technique that has really got people talking. Her new album 25 is also set to be a record breaker. It is already #1 in iTunes, and the single is currently the #1 downloaded song in 85 countries. The end of our English news edition. The news continues on Dzair News channel. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now.